Hi, it's Sheridan Webb here from the Training Designers Club, which is the place to go for practical L&D support, especially if you work on your own. And today I'm going to try and answer the question, how do you design and even deliver training if you don't use slides? This is a question that came up at our Training Design Festival in June, and I think it's a very valid question because there's a lot of expectation, I think, on us to create a nice slide deck. In fact, so many times we're asked by stakeholders or people who miss training for whatever reason, oh, send me the slides, like that's the centre of the whole training experience. So I think it's a really interesting question to say, how do we go about designing and delivering training without those slides? Now, for very many years, I didn't use slides at all. However, now we do a lot more virtual training. I think they are pretty important, but they absolutely do not need to be centre to everything that we do. So how do we design and deliver training without using slides? The first question I think you need to ask yourself is, why are you using slides? There's two main reasons, I think. So one is for you or the trainer, facilitator, and the second is for the delegates. So they've got to be fulfilling a need for one of those two parties, if not both. So if we're not going to use them for whatever reason, what could we use instead? As a trainer, as a facilitator, I truly believe the most important thing you can ever design is the session plan. The session plan is what holds everything together, and if you create a session plan, you can write it in a lot more detail than you would on slides, because obviously we don't want our slides to be too cluttered, and we don't want too many of them either. There's nothing worse than opening up a PowerPoint presentation and finding out that there's 150 slides for a 3-hour course, because everything that's going to be covered is spelled out on those slides. That is so inefficient and not a great use of using visual aids. So use a session plan, and it's much more detailed and it is much more flexible because only you, the trainer, has access to that session plan. So if you decide to go a little bit off-piste to adapt to the needs of the group, if you decide to switch the order around a little or maybe even miss something out, nobody is going to know. You're not going to have that embarrassing moment of saying, oh, well, we haven't got time to cover that, or, oh, I'm going to come to that later, and it throwing everybody. And it just looks a little bit less professional. So if you're working off your session plan, nobody knows what's coming next apart from you, with the trainer, if you're not delivering it yourself. And because we're not putting everything on slides, it allows us to be a lot more varied in our approach. So not everything has to be visually based. We don't have to have information followed by an exercise which is spelled out on a slide. We can be a lot more experiential in our training approach, so we can switch that screen off for a little while and go and do more interesting things without having the crutch of slides and having to rely on them to remind us as to what's coming up next. So session plans to me are the single most important thing that a training designer is ever going to design if you're designing live training. And if it's something that you're not familiar with, you're not really sure how to do, there is a very low cost course on the Training Designers Club website which will take you through that step by step. I don't overcomplicate it. I don't give you loads of stuff that you don't need to know. I just take you through it so that you can design that session plan with confidence and be less reliant on slides. The other reason that you create slides, of course, is for the participants, to give them something to take away, to give them some structure. Now, we've already mentioned that slides shouldn't have tons and tons of information on there. It doesn't encourage active learning. So if we want slides to provide information for people to take away, I would always recommend using a Delegate workbook. I know some people create workbooks that are just spaces to write. I don't see the point in that. People can make their own notes in whatever format suits them. For me, a Delegate workbook has all the information in it that you want to cover. And the beauty of that is, again, it's in more detail. So everything is explained fully in full sentences and paragraphs with examples, more information than you could put on a slide. It's going to flow in a logical order, it's going to make sense as a standalone document, and it's going to really please all those stakeholders who want to know exactly what's going to be covered on the training course, because all the detail is there. Now you may think, but what if there's something that I may or may not include? If we're providing a workbook, aren't we going to be creating the same problems as we do if we have slides that we don't cover? Well, my response to that is to create handouts for the exercises, so to give instructions for exercises and for any optional sections that you may or may not cover. It's an approach I take with Power Hour Ready Written training materials. So the session plan covers everything, the workbook covers the core, and handouts cover anything that's additional, optional or supplementary or activity based. So it gives the trainer, the facilitator, full and complete control over everything that is going to happen in that training room. They've got all the information they need, but it's kind of hidden. So the participants are just focusing on enjoying and throwing themselves into that learning experience. So in terms of creating workbooks and slides, there is we had a lunch and learn on that in the VIP community, and there is a recording on the website if that is something that you are interested in. So just to reiterate, you do not need slides to run or design a training course. Slides should be the thing that you turn to last. They are optional extras. They are the icing on the cake. And that is just my view. It's why I always design them last. So appreciate, I've probably talked for quite a long time on this one, but it is something that I feel quite strongly about. I'm not saying don't produce slides. Slides can be very, very helpful. But what I am saying is don't start with them. Don't make them central to everything it is you do. Produce the right slides in the right way to have the effect that you want them to do. Now, for more practical tips on all aspects of training design, check out the rest of the YouTube channel. Go and check out the podcast, the Training Design Podcast. Visit our website, which is www.trainingdesignersclub.co.uk. And of course, become a VIP member. Join our community of supportive practitioners who help each other out every single day of the week with all of these types of practical questions. Until next time.